Hi, everyone. So I'm happy to announce Rudolph Delson, Maynard and Jennica is his first book. I think it's kind of interesting that maybe like many Googlers, he grew up in San Jose and now lives in New York. And probably, maybe like some of us at the age of 30, he decided a complete career transition and now wrote this book, Maynard and Jennica, which a lot of us maybe have already read. I thought it was fabulous, and he's here to talk about it today. So Google and everyone, please give a warm welcome to Rudolph Delson.
Hi, thank you all for coming. So here's the itinerary. So I'm going to read from the book for a little bit, but I usually you sort of go to these readings and like you're at like some synagogue in Atlanta or something, and like you don't have any connection to the place, and it is so exciting to be at Google, and you all work here, so maybe you're sort of over the thrill of like, being in the place that has as its logo the thing that's at the top of your computer screen every day. It's like you've arrived at the center of the universe. And I'm a shareholder. I own 3 shares. I would like to encourage you all to go back to work. I actually have Google anecdotes. I don't know if these are interesting or not, but the thing that thank you for the introduction, by the way. So I quit. I for a long time worked as a lawyer, which was sort of my way of paying rent while trying to do this, and there was sort of the definitive day where I quit and realized the only way the book was going to get written was if I was not trying to work at the same time. And briefly after I quit, Gmail figured out that I wasn't a lawyer anymore. I don't know how it did this, but it started the sort of contextual ads suddenly started changing. And now I can't send an email without 2-3 times a day I see the ad for Walter the Farting Dog. Are you familiar with this book? This children's book? It is, if you start sending emails to like an editor or to your friends about writing a book, Walter the Farting Dog will start haunting you. This guy who wrote this book and is buying these ads, brilliant. I not quite having that budget to promote my own book. So I think we have ready to go. Yes, no. So here's I made my sort of own advertisement for the book, which has been up on YouTube for a while, well, I guess it's self-explanatory, so it's all...
This beautiful shop in Brownstone, Brooklyn is home to the world-class literature of the community bookstore. Today, we're secretly replacing the text of all the novels sold here with Maynard and Jennica by Rudolph Delson. Will the fiction be literary enough?
I read the whole book. I read it in one sitting. It took me the whole day. It was classic.
I loved it. No, I didn't like it.
I thought it was moving, beautiful. I really like the color of the pages.
That book is Maynard and Jennica.
Really?
No.
By Rudolph Delson.
I can't believe it's not real literature.
Maynard and Jennica by Rudolph Delson. Fiction fine enough for America's best bookstores.
This is what you do when you have no advertising budget. More Google anecdotes. Well, I'll maybe at the end we can do questions. But it is really like, I suspect I'm not the only person in the world who sort of feels like y'all are my team, because whenever I need something, like Google is what sort of you go to get it. So it's very, very flattering to be here. I'm going to read 3 sections. The novel, for those of you who haven't looked at it yet, is, it's a comedy, but it's told in a series of sort of rotating voices. There are 30-odd characters, and they each sort of get their chance to lend their 2 cents and give their perspective on the action that's happening in front of them. Maynard and Jennica, of course, are the sort of the 2 main voices, but there are dozens of others. So I'm just going to read the first words that Jennica says to the reader, and then the first words that Maynard says to the reader, and then we'll do one other little thing. So I don't think these need much introduction since they're the first things that the characters say to you. I will say, though, as a disclaimer, that Jennica, for those of you who haven't read the book yet, that Jennica is in a particularly frantic moment when she begins speaking to the reader, so you'll forgive her for her being manic. So, Jennica Green, who never has any luck on Valentine's Day, describes the evening of her boyfriend's arrest, mid-February 2001. This is so going to make me sound like one of those women, and I so am not one of those women, but okay. All afternoon, it was as if the city was as oblivious as I was to what was happening. Right up until 2 minutes before Arnie called from the police station, the city was like intent on being gorgeous with the snow and with the serenity and with my first afternoon off in months. And it was deceiving me. You know, like all afternoon I'd been communing peacefully with the awnings and the fire escapes and the lampposts, the elegant side of Soho, the wet black iron and this fresh white snow in the middle of a snowstorm, all in relief against each other, that the sapphire light, the deep sea light of a snowy day. But sure enough, at 5 o'clock, just as I need to get in a cab and get home and get packed, the snow like devolves into sleet. The pretty drifts on the fire escapes and on the lampposts, they're melting. They're drooling down onto me. All the snowbanks on the sidewalk melting simultaneously. The gutters are inundated, frothing up this filth, ice and cigarettes and cellophane flooding the street. The sewer grates are just overcome. They're spewing up water, spewing this dirty water into the street. Of course, my umbrella is just funneling the sleet straight into my shopping bags, and it's dark, and my cell phone starts ringing, but I can't get it. And bear in mind, I'd been at work that morning in my decent clothes, so my black zipper boots sopping, my black coat sopping. The sleeve of my sweater is like a wick, just sucking all this icy, clammy whatever straight from the stem of my umbrella right to my armpit. If you come from San Jose, California, it doesn't matter how long you've lived in New York. You feel so vulnerable to shabbiness. But I get to 6th Avenue looking for a cab. And of course, on 6th Avenue, the wind tries to mug me. It has its fists wheeling around, wham, across my face, wham. My shopping bags are flailing everywhere. And I'm trying to fend it off with my umbrella. But my umbrella, it's doing that gagging thing. You know, the thing that umbrellas do when the wind gets to them, where they look like a cat that's coughing up a hairball. The only way I can keep my umbrella alive is by pointing it straight into the wind, which of course blocks my view down 6th Avenue practically. And my cell phone is still going off, but suddenly I see this cab. I don't have a free hand because I'm holding an umbrella. I've got my shopping bags. So I hail it with my umbrella, getting myself even more drenched, but the cab starts flashing its turn signals, right? So it's my cab, right? I got soaked trying to hail it, so it's my cab, right? Which is when the crazy German woman appears, materializes out of nowhere. The cab had stopped 10 feet from me, 15 feet, but from nowhere, this crazy German woman has appeared and she's opening the door to my cab. And she's dry, which is like a personal affront practically. She has a cigarette in her hand, which she's putting out. She has a muffin in her other hand, a muffin, which she's putting into her pocket, getting in my cab, huge, curly, wheat blonde hair, lots of ringlets, all pinned up, getting into my cab. And let me describe this coat that she's wearing. It's rubber, first of all, and white, and it goes down to her knees with a belt and with buttons, but with this huge fur collar, like fake white rabbit fur. And she's wearing it with this mustard yellow scarf and these turquoise pants, dry, and getting into my cab. It's as if she's been waiting in a doorway for me to hail the cab for her. So I lose it. I'm like, hey, that's my cab. And she just gets in, just opens the door, gets in, reaches over to close the door. Ice is splashing me everywhere. My umbrella finally gags on its hairball and dies. And my bags are beginning to tear, so I absolutely lose it. I scream, and I do mean scream, "You fucking cunt, that's my cab!" And, all right, I don't want this story to make me sound like one of those women. So let me tell you why I was in a hurry, which only matters now to prove that I'm not, whatever, a horrible person. So look, here is my plan. My plan in 5 steps, or 6 steps, or 7. But okay, so step 1 was 8 o'clock on Thursday night, I would meet Arnie with my bag packed. And then step 2 is at 8:30, we had reservations at Four Noodles because we'd been warned to have one good meal before we left town, including by Rose, by Arnie's globe-trotting grandmother Rose, who told us, the first thing you do when you get to that island is you go to a grocery store. They have avocados the size of my handbag there. You can eat them for breakfast, you can eat them for lunch with cottage cheese and paprika, because let me tell you, there's not one restaurant on that island that you are going to enjoy. All right, so that's step 2. Step 3 is at 10:30 after the meal, we get home, we go to bed at Arnie's. Step 4 is that at 7 o'clock the next morning, Friday morning, the cab comes to take us to Kennedy. And then step 5 is that Friday at noon, we are with my parents in San Jose so that they can meet the man who is the father of my cat. And then step 6 is that early Saturday morning, we leave San Jose for Hawaii, where neither of us has ever been. And then step 7 is that Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Hawaii time, we're on the big island for Valentine's week, right? But notice that there is no step that involves me, like, making bail for Arnie. But the point is, though, that if that's step 1 through 7, then step -1 has to be to go to Soho and get the linen top that I need and the sunglasses, and I need sandals, and we need soap, too, because we don't know what's going to be in the condo on the island. And then if that's step -1, then at 5 o'clock, step 0 has to be to get in a cab and get home and get packed. But instead, this German woman is stealing my cab and closing the door on me. So I'm screaming at her, "You fucking cunt!" Which is when I realize what the German woman is doing. She isn't closing the taxi's door on me. She's pulling it in so I can squeeze past the puddles and climb into the cab also. And what she says to me from inside the cab in her Marlene Dietrich accent is, "I thought that we share the taxi if you go uptown." Right? Human kindness. She wants to split the cab. And I am mortified because I just called her a fucking cunt. But what am I going to do? I get in the cab. And it's an Israeli cabbie, or maybe he's Russian. Anyway, he's sort of eyeing us like, who are these two nutcases? But okay, normally when you sit down in a cab in winter, you get out of the snow and into the heat. It's like taking your own little trip to Hawaii, a hot, mobile little island just for you. But this cab, you sit down, and what you experience before you even feel the heat is the driver's cologne. So heavy, it will feel like it's going to give you a rash, which is in addition to the rash I'm already getting just from the tension with the crazy German woman. Anyway, I tell the driver, Lexington and 83rd, right? And the crazy German woman tells him she's going to 65th and 3rd Avenue, like directly on the way if we go through the park, right? Like, how convenient, right? Like, what a coincidence. And the cab driver says, I take 8th Avenue. It's faster on the west side. All right. So 8th Avenue in a sleet storm. The cabbie is muttering to himself, but fine. The crazy German woman is eating her muffin and sitting there all prettily like I didn't just call her a fucking cunt. And just as I'm getting ready to apologize to her, my cell phone starts ringing again. And the call is from some unknown number, but it's from Arnie. So I'm like, "Oh, hey, baby, where are you calling from?" And he says, a precinct house. "Oh, no, what happened? Did you get mugged?" And he's like offended. "Me? Mugged? No, Jennica, listen, I've been..." Because 8th Avenue gets the worst reception for my phone. So I tell him, "What? I'm not getting reception." That the German woman cringing, the smelly cabbie cringing, because of course I'm on a cell phone and I'm being shrill. Of course they're thinking that I'm one of those women. But Arnie's like, "Arrested, and I need you to call David Fowler." Arrested? Arnie, for what? What? For murder? And the smelly cab driver and the crazy German woman, now they both cringe, but in a different way. Because now they aren't sure if I'm one of those women or if I'm some spoiled mafia mall. But Arnie, who are they saying that you? And he's like, "Allegedly, Jennica, I'm like, "What, Arnie? I can't hear a word," which is terrible, right? It's like, is he all right? Is he going to get out? Am I supposed to call Grand Rose and make bail? Am I supposed to call the airline and cancel everything? A minute before, I'd been worrying about, like, how do I apologize to the crazy German woman? Should I really have spent $97 on that white linen top? Did I remember to give Julie the key so that she could feed my cat? These worries, some worries are such a privilege. And all Arnie is saying is, call David Fowler, call David Fowler. And David Fowler is a terrible lawyer. Look what happened the last time Arnie went to him. And that was just like money, not murder. So I tell him, Arnie, I don't want to call David Fowler. Let me call Grand Rose. She probably knows someone. And he says, now, totally clear, Jennica, do not you dare call Grand Rose. Call David Fowler. And now, at this point, the taxi's pretty much at Times Square. I realize I have to get out of the cab. I have to get to a ground line. I have to figure out David Fowler's telephone number. But no, so mostly I have to get out of the cab. So I tell the cab driver, I need to get out here. There's been a change of plans. I tell Arnie, if I'm going to deal with this, I have to get to a better phone. Tell me exactly where you are. And he says, they say they're taking me to the Tombs. Totally creepy, right? The Tombs? Well, anyway, while he's saying this, I'm splashing back out into the sidewalk where the cab has dropped me. Outside, everywhere, it's like sleet and just cataracts of ice. But already, I've spotted the hotel that I'm going to make a dash for, and already I'm strategizing how I'm going to deal with the concierge, what to tell him so he'll let me use the ground line. The cabbie's saying, is okay, you two figure out money, is okay. I've got bags everywhere. I'm dripping all over the seat, but the meter is at $8, so I give the crazy German woman a 5, right? $5 bill, because it's either that or a 20. And totally blasé, she's like, yeah, fine. Oh, and as I close the door to the cab, I tell her, I am totally sorry that I called you a fucking cunt. Right? I meant to apologize to her, and that's what came out. So embarrassing. But anyway, I get the cell phone back out of my pocket, and I realize I've hung up on Arnie. Right? So I'm clopping across the sidewalk, sleet running down my neck, trying to make it to a hotel lobby where I can borrow a ground line to call David Fowler, when I hear the cabbie from up 8th Avenue shouting, you are a fucking cunt! And I turn around, and there's the crazy German woman half a block up on the sidewalk. Like, she decided to get out of the cab too, except she's making a dash for the subway station. And the cabbie is standing there in the sleet with his flashers on, watching her and calling her a cunt, right? She jumped the fare. The crazy German woman jumped the fare. So I run half a block up through the sleet to pay the driver, because whatever, it's what you do. And the crazy German woman, she hadn't even given him my $5 bill. And so while he's making change for my 20, he tells me, this is why she wanted to get off at 65th. She was going to let you pay for her. She's very smart, but you coming back and paying me when you're already out of the car, not so very smart. Like, thanks. Did I mention, by the way, that you smell? But anyway, what I really want to know is, who was that woman? So that's Jennica. And here's Maynard. Maynard Gogarty tells us what happened on the subway and dissects a dilemma. Early August 2000. There was a woman with beauty spots and a misunderstanding with the authorities, all on a Lexington Avenue local, uptown. She was one of these women who strike your heart and leave it resounding like a bell. It's a simple story, but may I give a brief preface, and then we can discuss what I did wrong? All right, a preface. You step onto the subway. The subway is constituting a borough unto themselves, with different hostilities and different hopes, a whole mobile county of curiosities, and there she is, this creature with angelic blood and with a cup of iced coffee and with the scent of some recherche shampoo in her hair and her smile just so, her halo quivering every time the subway rattles. And you must decide what to do. Do you say something to her, or do you say nothing? Because dignity would seem dilemmatically to require both, yet to permit neither. The subway is, after all, one of the most dignified places to open an affair. Love should contain a constituent element of irreducible destiny, and destiny is exactly what is lacking when Battery Park businessmen ransom dates with chesty socialites from those commercial matchmakers in Midtown, or when idle and gelatinous West Side freelancers suctioned to their coffee shop tables like sea anemones filter through the classified ads in the Village Voice for something reading "Woman Seeks Manly Polyp." And destiny is what is lacking when, after months of inhaling one another's dander, the mustard-breathed attorney commences his case, his lascivious case, against his homely, hot-doggy paralegal. Or when the bag boy at Gristides propositions the Gristides cashier. Love should not be the spoils of a deliberate campaign or the convenient alliance of a war of attrition. Love should be an instant and supernatural uproar in the soul. It should be the resounding of a bell. So, on the subway, with the beautiful girl, dignity demands action, condemns silence, because when the girl with the halo sits down across the subway aisle from you, it is your one chance for truest love. However, and contrariwise, subways or no, dignity demands that we, as rational apes, reject delusions, including comforting delusions, in favor of the truth. And it is a comforting delusion to think that every time a beautiful woman sits down across the aisle from you on the subway, destiny is trying to bring you happiness. Destiny does not manifest itself in the form of chance encounters with beautiful women. Destiny manifests itself always in the form of hobby horses, pet phrases, pet cats, nose picking, and credit card debt, and Sunday crossword puzzles, and the pursuit, as they call it, of fun. In other words, your destiny has been riding across the subway aisle from you for much, much longer than you can ever imagine. Beautiful strangers do not each represent a new form of happiness. Beautiful strangers are like everybody else. They're dull, and they're demanding, and they're violent, and they're malodorous. So when a beautiful woman sits down across the subway aisle from you, dignity condemns action. It demands that you be silent, because when you fail to say hello to a beautiful stranger on the subway, you have triumphantly avoided yet another form of human misery. So, to say something or to say nothing. This is the anatomy of the dilemma presented by love and dignity on the subway, and this concludes the preface. Now, I was on, as I was saying, an uptown local on the Lexington Avenue line, a subway that was doomed to stall at 33rd Street. I'd boarded at the City Hall stop, still woozy from a breakfast meeting with the woman who wants to buy the rights to my movie, and I was taking the contract uptown to my attorney. It was my quadrennial half pint of success. I was in media res, in the worst way, running an errand for my meager movie on a wet furnace of a morning. My armpits were... Have you ever used a droplet of water to test the heat of a walk? Because while I was waiting for the platform, on the platform for the train at City Hall, my armpits were informing me that the walk was ready. The woman next to me on the platform at City Hall was wearing a yellow muumuu and carrying a Bible and a blue ice freezer pack. Bible shut, freezer pack against her chest. Fundamentalist heat we're talking about. Subway was empty, naturally, when it arrived, finally rolled in, because City Hall is the first stop on the line. But I didn't take a seat on the subway. I took off my jacket, draped it over my moist shirt sleeve, and stood like a jack under the air conditioner to expose myself to as much as possible of that good, dry blast of air. So, subway leaves City Hall. As it makes each stop, the doors open, the beastly day seethes into the train, the doors close, cool order returns. By Spring Street, the woman in the muumuu has cooled off enough to start reading her Bible, and I extract my handkerchief from my pocket and begin to mop myself up when I notice a crucial detail. At the far end of the subway car, the alarm for the emergency brake is sounding, but I do nothing about it yet. All right, Spring Street, Bleecker Street, Astor Place. Our train arrives at Union Square simultaneously with an express train. Fatefully, I decide against doing that bounce across the platform to catch the faster train. I'm too hot. I'm in no hurry. My lawyer can wait. The fundamentalist in the moo-moo leaves, however, thumps away to go catch her express train, and into our car from the express train slips the woman with the beauty spots. A shapely twist of a woman dressed in black with 2 beauty spots on her right cheek. Doors shut. She sits down at the other end of the car, directly underneath that colicky emergency brake. 23rd Street, 28th Street, shadows, stiff air. The beautiful woman's halo is vibrating in time to the trill from the emergency brake. 33rd Street, and just note the pointlessness of the place and the time. 33rd Street at 10:25 a.m. in the midst of a primordial heat wave. At 10:25 a.m., 33rd Street is harrowingly bland. It is nowhere. But 33rd Street. Train pulls up to the platform, but the doors don't open. And then, as was foreordained, the subway stalls. The electricity weakens and dies. The lights dwindle and then quit. The air conditioning expires. We, the passengers, are now experiencing the subway as it was in the age of the reptiles. The only thing still functioning are the alarm for the emergency brake siren and the public address system, the latter of which the conductor is using to scold us. She's accusing someone of having pulled the emergency brake. This train is going to be held in the station. Apparently she's planning to go car to car looking for the culprit, looking for the person who pulled the emergency brake. Now, you can tell a lot from this conductor's voice. She's black, for one thing. She's young. She's calm, but not necessarily always calm. You can hear the potential for impressive intemperance. People, listen up. We have a brake situation, so you're going to have to be patient. Be patient, please. So we sit there and, without the air conditioning, commence to sweat, and we listen in the darkness to the whine of the emergency brake. Outside, growing restless, are all the damned souls on the platform at 33rd Street, waiting to get into the train, waiting to be pardoned and released into the cool interior of the 6th train, or rather, the ever less cool interior of the 6th train. Woman with the beauty spots is sipping an iced coffee, at peace in her seat. She's wearing leather sandals, but her feet are enchantedly clean for someone who's been walking around Manhattan in weather that's hot enough to sublimate the concrete. Her hair is thick and wavy and blackish, pulled back under a knotted white handkerchief, a pristine handkerchief, eyes closed, soft features, and 2 beauty marks on her right cheek. Maybe she's Spanish, maybe Jewish, sleeveless, black shirt made out of something elasticy, stained in the faintest half moons of perspiration right along the bottom of the armholes, which is very sexy, and billowy black linen pants, sipping her iced coffee through a straw. No milk. She's drinking it black. And the condensation is dripping onto her hands. She's got a napkin, a bundle of paper napkins that she's using to mop the condensation from the side of her plastic iced coffee cup, and that she's then holding against her forehead so she can feel the coolness. Freckles on her shoulders. Her seat is at the other end of the car, directly underneath the noisy emergency brake, and I see my opportunity. All I need is 1 teaspoon of courage, 1 teaspoon of romantic courage, and I can do her the dignified courtesy of shutting off that alarm. So that's Maynard. I'm just going to read one more short little section here. This one requires a little bit of setup. The reason Maynard is going uptown in that scene I just read is that he's selling certain rights to this music that he's written for a movie. He doesn't know who wants to acquire the rights exactly, but it turns out that they're being acquired for sampling into this song. And a few months go by, and then Maynard is going through the radio one day, and in fact, here's the song, here's his own music playing on the radio, being sampled into this pop song. So I'm going to read the lyrics to the pop song for which his music has been expropriated. I'll skip the choruses. I'll just read the verses. It's by an artist named Puppy Jones. Airfare, blame game, brain drain, care bear, fake bake, hair bear, late date, care, waylay, mayday, name game, naysay, pale mail, pale ale, plain Jane, payday, fat cat, gal pal, backpack track, fag hag, handstand, grandstand, pass gas, ragtag, bedhead, peg leg, birth dearth, deadhead, hell's bells, jet set, medhead, bedspread, cheat sheet, deep sleep, dream team, fleet street, geek cheek, green bean, Greek week, heat treat, kiwi, real deal, sneak peek, near beer, speed read, sweet meat, TV, steer clear, big dig, big rig, big wig, chick flick, chill pill, ill will, picnic, pickwick, spit fit, shit fit, slim jims, ring ding, Swiss miss, white night, white flight, spring fling. Harry Carry, later skater, wabi sabi, wavy gravy, handy dandy, hanky panky, laffy taffy, lardy darty, namby pamby, razzle dazzle, fender bender, gender bender, helter skelter, herky jerky, jelly belly, heebie jeebies, jeepers creepers, legal eel, teeny weeny, wheeling deal, and chilly willy, silly billy, willy nilly, hippy dippy, artsy fartsy, party hardy, pocket rocket, walkie talkie, hocus pocus, hokey pokey, holy moly, local yokel, hoochie coochie, loosey goosey, pooper scooper, rootin' tootin', super duper, flower power, wowie zowie, chubby hubby, chunky monkey, culture vulture, double trouble, funny money, hurdy gurdy, fuzzy wuzzy, hubba bubba, humpty dumpty. Oshkosh bagosh. That's Puppy Jones. That was all I was planning on reading, so I guess we now come to the questions part of the thing. I don't know what time it is, and if we're under time constraints for people. Okay, yeah, so let's do some. If people have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions or talk. Can you talk to the microphone? Or I'm happy to repeat the question too if people. Okay, yeah, sure. So is there an audio book where you read this? I don't think anybody else can do this. There isn't an audiobook. I would very much like to make one. The best I can say is that it's in the works. It's harder than you would think to actually, because it's 300 pages long. It would be, if I can read 2 hours a day, like weeks of work, right? So anyway, it's something I think about. I just don't want to do it where it's like me sitting in front of the little mic on my Mac, like doing like a sort of podcast version of the book or something. So I need to there's all these questions of arranging it. But yeah, no, it's something I think about. But no, there is not one yet.
Since you just ended with Puppy's rap song, I don't know, I might have missed something, but why did he get blamed? Like, why did his career get ruined after 9/11 because of that song? Okay, so this is a plot giveaway question. But no, it's fine. It's fine. Plot spoiler warning. So the way the book unfolds, Puppy Jones, who's writes this sort of song that becomes one of those ridiculous hits, and becomes a little bit of a celebrity, much to Maynard's chagrin. And you just heard it. You can determine the intellectual and cultural merits of what's just been of his song. And he, right around September 11th, the September 11th occurs late in the book and sort of affects the characters' lives, or more importantly, does not affect the characters' lives in a number of ways. But probably more than anyone, Puppy Jones takes a hit at September 11th because he becomes this sort of target for people who want to denounce the frivolity of American culture, right? And we should have been more serious. If we'd been more serious, we could have avoided the attacks. And I think, if you remember, so the question is, why is this puppy's fate? And, I think in this sense, I'm just trying to record what in fact happened, right? Do you remember? The headlines in the newspaper on September 10th, 2001 were like there was some sort of thing about killer mold in the New York Post, right? Like the threat of killer mold. You're going to spores. We're going to get into your kids' lungs and something. There was something about Gary Condit. Remember him? The possibly murderous congressman from the Central Valley of California. And like Britney Spears, there's some sort of scandal. She'd shown up like dancing with a boa constrictor or at the MTV Music Awards. And like this, and then there was this kind of, on September 13th, all of the Americans specialize in sanctimony, right? Like this sort of sense of, I knew it was right and you all did the wrong thing and I'm going to denounce you for it. And I think there was a lot of that, just pure sanctimony, like real people seized that moment culturally as an opportunity to like sort of lash out against everything they hated, right? Like Britney Spears and Gary Condon. And so I don't know, I think Puppy Jones is just sort of a way of kind of getting at that moment of American culture. So why? I don't know. That's something deep in the American cultural consciousness, right? Yeah. I don't know, does that answer the question? I'm not sure if that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if maybe I just missed something.
Hi.
Hi.
I want to know what your inspiration for Manny was, because he's just such a really peculiar character out of like a different century.
I mean Maynard. Yeah.
Maynard.
Yeah. So I mean, no one in the book calls Maynard by his real name. He gets called Arnie. He gets called Manny. He gets called a number of things, but no one calls him Maynard. The inspiration. There's something very appealing about misanthropy, and in particular misanthropes, and this sort of idea of someone who like both is drawn to people but rejects them and feels like they're doing things wrong, and a big appeal of. So Maynard began with the idea of the misanthrope, of how can I write about someone who really just sort of rejects the world, and what are his principles on which he lives. And like, I don't know, I think by the end of the book, it's not clear that Maynard really does have principles of his own. He just sort of reacts and justifies himself. But the way that someone dresses is a very clear indication of how they want to set themselves apart. So Maynard dresses in this very peculiar way. And the thing is, people react to how he dresses. If he were a character who dressed more normally, people would probably have a less harsh reaction to him. They just, people are very superficial. If he spoke like other people speak, they would judge him. It's not like anything he's saying is so outrageous. He's just a little more bombastic. So I think that there's this an element of sort of the. I guess I would say I'm not sure he really is out of another century so much as that other people think, like the characters in the book want to feel that he is, because they don't want to have to deal with him for who he is. They would rather just judge him based on his clothes and sort of how he speaks. When I was creating that character, I was the great thing about writing a comedy about a misanthrope is you can just make the misanthrope suffer. I mean, the whole point is to get him mad so that he denounces people. So you can just cook up every way you can to make him sort of experience the indignities of life. If there's someone, you just have a character, everything bad and preposterous can happen to. That's their fate, because they're the misanthrope. So that was the real pleasure of him. So I think also things happen to him that wouldn't happen to other characters. Because of the role he plays in the book. Yes.
Wouldn't you say that both characters are also sort of dueling forces, like most of us?
So the question is, wouldn't you say that both the characters are the dueling forces in both of us? Yeah, I mean, the book, Maynard is a deeply misanthropic character, and Jennica is a very deeply romantic one. I mean, Maynard really lashes out at the world for everything it does wrong, and Jennica really believes if she could just find the right boyfriend, the right apartment, and the right job, and sort of go through the algorithm, she could get to happiness, right? Just check off the boxes in the order and you get there, which is the most romantic worldview you could have. I mean, that's this idea of moving from California to New York because that's where you're going to be happy. It's the most romantic thing you could do. And yeah, I do think that those instincts, that sort of, the real desire to be happy and the real desire to hate are sort of things that, come out of us in New York. Everyone laughs when I say that hate, like as if you don't stand there on the subway, right, when it's totally crowded at rush hour and like just sort of, there's some misshapen, horrible person who's like, shoulder is jamming you in the side of the cheek and like just feel the bed bugs crawling off of them and into your, like, hate them. What are you doing here, this awful city? I think it's natural. So yeah, I mean, I think that's in a way that the dynamic. Maynard lives in a misanthropic comedy. Everyone in his half of the book is out to get each other, and they are sort of undercutting each other and backstabbing each other. And Jennica lives in a very romantic world. I mean, everyone in her side of the book loves each other and really wants to support each other. But they also, as a result, Jennica sees things that aren't there. I mean, she really, not to give another plot spoiler, but she if anyone doesn't want the plot completely ruined, I would suggest leaving the room now or turning off the just click stop. There's at the very end of the book, Jennica sort of cheats on Maynard, winds up hooking up with this other guy, and the reason she does that is because she's such a romantic. She in her worldview, there has to be another guy who's the perfect guy. She just happens to stumble across. There has to be this kind of competition. She just can't live her own emotional life without playing out that romantic plot. In the same way that Maynard can't live his emotional life without living out the plot of damn you all, right? So. You can just ask, yeah.
I just wanted to ask about Anna Kaganova and Puppy Jones and sort of whether you were trying to create stock characters in a comedy or where you got an inspiration for a character who was German, Israeli, and Russian and just crazy.
Right. What to say about Puppy Jones? So stock characters. I mean, I don't think there's no self-respecting author can admit to working with stock characters, right? But also, I don't think any honest author can say that you don't. There's so many stock characters out there that you have to. You can't write a book without being conscious of those types that you either want to, sort of mimic or avoid. But cliches exist for a reason. I mean, there are these sort of people who are impresarios, and that's all that Puppy Jones is, just an impresario. As for Anna, so Anna, for those of you who haven't read, is this sort of, she's just my embodiment of a fraud. I mean, she's just looking for schemes. I mean, she hunts, her mind hunts for ways to scheme through things. Cheating cabbies, cheating immigration officials, all sort of the same thing. And what can I say about the inspiration for her? I mean, it takes a number of years to write a book, and the characters sort of start in one way, and then you need them to do things since they develop personalities around the kind of person that would do those things you need them to do. I needed her to be German because I wanted to have a character with a German accent. And I needed her to be Jewish because I wanted everyone in the car, in the taxi, in the opening scene to be Jewish. I wanted 3 Jews from the different, I wanted an American Jew, an Israeli Jew, and a Russian Jew. So now I've got to have a Russian Jew who speaks German, right, just to get Anna to work. And it's how the hell do you do that? So it's well, if she speaks German, she has the accent, she had to have had her childhood there. And the only Russian nationals who speak German were the Communist Party officials and their children who lived in Berlin, of which there were a subset. And I knew 1 or 2 of those when I was living in Berlin. And then there's this great archive at the New York City Public Library that someone gathered in the 70s and 80s when the first wave of Russian immigrants started coming to America, the Russian Jewish immigrants, 78 to sort of 83. And they would take these, there was some set of oral historians who were going out to Brighton Beach and Queens and just sort of sitting down with these people and asking them to tell these stories. And I think it was there was some kind of propaganda effort going on too, because they would always ask them these totally leading questions about oh, well, there was terrible anti-Semitism at the university where you grew up, wasn't there? And the person would be so I read a few of those, and then it became a sort of interesting physics problem of how do you just navigate this woman through that childhood that I wanted her to have and that young adulthood, and then get her through all of that to come out as this kind of scheming, maniacal artist type. So, it's astronomical metaphors are often very helpful for writing. When there's these people, they want to send a satellite through the rings of Saturn, right? And they don't have enough fuel, so you have to kick it on its trajectory where it goes towards Venus and gets a little gravitational kick off Venus, goes around the back of the sun, and then gets enough gravitational and it just swoops forward, and then they have to with 2 little redirections of the rockets, aim it through the rings of Saturn, right? And this is kind of what you do when you're writing a character. Okay, I got to go fly by a Venus. I got to go around the back of the sun, and I'm going to go through. And that's the pleasure of it, is trying to figure out how to get a believable story that fits. Good question. Yes.
I love how the rants that Maynard goes on. I mean, there's the September 11th rant. There's the sissy, anti-sissy one, the one that you read it too. I think my favorite one is probably when they're naming the cat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you just wanted to talk about like how you came up with all these different like opinions. They seem very strong. Are they your own or?
The question, there's a scene where Maynard and Jennica fight about how to name a cat. And Jennica wants to give it the name of an artist or a writer or something cultural, and Maynard refuses on principle, he says. That's a really good example of this thing I was talking about, of trying to come up with circumstances to torture Maynard, to like make him express what he finds so distasteful and so undignified, right? I mean, the indignity is this. Or let me back up. Dignity is not something people spend a lot of time thinking about, but you really can show so much about yourself and how, like, silly you are unintentionally, right? You go into someone's house and they tell you the name of their cat, right? And like, fine, if the cat's name is like, Scratches or whatever, fine. But if they've named their cat Moliere, right? Like, it's just what you get is a sense of, oh, you poor person, you majored in French literature in college, and now you're whatever you are, you're a bond salesman, and like your husband is a bond salesman, and now you've named your cat after this, after a play that you liked when you were 19 years old. It's just so sad. You've given so much about yourself away. And I had this friend who had named her cat Emma, which is a questionable name, but she was so proud to tell me that she was naming it Emma after the Jane Austen character, right? I was like, oh, and then she got another one, and it promptly became, it was one or another of the characters in Pride and Prejudice. It wasn't Darcy, but it was something equally bad. Yeah, there we go. It was Willoughby. It's just so, and like, I just remember thinking, Liz is my friend's name. Forgive me, Liz, if you're seeing this on YouTube. God, this is a dangerous, dangerous game I'm playing. You just, there was this shining moment where I was like, God, I would never name my cat Emma or Willoughby. And but I could totally understand the desire to, right? So in a way, you just sort of get these two little data points about what it's like to be human, right? It's like, well, you have these reactions; they become part of this. You look for the things your characters would do in certain circumstances, a way to bring them out. And that when I started sort of going through the litany of things you could name a cat to give it cultural credentials, it started. Sat down one morning, stood up at the end of the day, and had written the scene. It was, yes, from the eager woman with the brown black sweater. This, by the way, just so everyone knows, so this is my editor, Anjali, who I got to bring guests. So this is Anjali and her assistant Ben, who are very politely came out to support me today. So everyone knows why she's asking all these questions. This question, so what would I name my cat? I will say this: that they eventually settled on the name Grumpus for a variety of reasons. And in fact, I've now found out about cats being named Grumpus. People have written to tell me about cats that they're naming Grumpus. Well, yeah, they mumpus the Grumpus. Yeah, they go back and forth. I don't know what I would name my cat. I mean, the one thing is I don't have the reason there was a period when I was writing about the cat where actually really it was a sublimation of my own desire to buy a cat, but I couldn't because my apartment was too small, and it would mean having like either stepping on kitty litter every time I went to take a shower, which is just disgusting, or like having the kitty litter in my bedroom, which is disgusting. And so for lack of a place to put the kitty litter, I never got a cat. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, that's part of the pleasure of writing it. I mean, you think through these problems. I don't know. By the way, I will say this, that on my website, I've invited people to send me pictures of their cats along with the cats' names, and people do it. They really want to tell me what their cats' names are and what their cat looks like. It's really strange. Like, oh, here's my cat. Its name's Smokey. Here's a picture of him on the couch. It's like, oh, okay, great. I mean, I encourage everyone to send me pictures of their cats. God, this is so... Damn you, YouTube! All right, I'm conscious of getting you all back to work so you can go increase the values of my enormous shareholdings, 3 shares. But thank you. Is there any other questions? Otherwise, thank you so much for coming out in the middle of your working day and doing this. If anyone has books that they want me to sign, I'm happy to sign the books. But I'm totally flattered to be here, and thank you for listening.